Okay, new features in R14 SP1. I'll start with opening zip files. Just go to Home, Open, go find a zip file. And I have some down here. There's a zipped assembly. I'll click on the zipped file. I'll click on Open. And I don't have to unzip it. It just opens it for me. And I'll say, all I really want is this one part in here. So I'm going to click on Open. It's opened. I never had to unzip the file. Never had to go find the file that was unzipped. Let's look at another one. Let's take this assembly, and I need another copy of this. So I'm going to do a save as, and we'll just save that to step also, and I'll call it assembly number 5. And then I'm going to say open the file after save as, and then click save. So it's going to do the save, and then it's going to open it for me. So this is a good way to preview geometry before you send it to your customer, just to make sure it's good. Next one is remove small bodies. So I'm going to go to this file, and under Expert, I'm going to click on Remove Small Bodies. And I'm going to click on this nut here, which is part of an instance group, and say find anything with that bounding box or smaller and remove it. There's other ways to use this. And then I'm going to click Delete. I'm showing you the fast way. So imagine you have 200 300 parts in an assembly that are things that are not pertinent to your design process. You can remove those and have a lightweight assembly to work with. The next one is replace with bounding box. So I'm going to click on this geometry and replace it all with the bounding box, because let's say this geometry is not pertinent to my design process. I just need to mount this base to one of our parts, and so I don't want to carry around all 200 of their parts or whatever. Let's say replace with bounding box, and you can see there's probably more stuff we could have replaced, but the idea is replace a bunch of stuff that is not important for your design process with a bounding box and lighten up the assembly. Simplify the process. The next one is Magic Wrap and Convex Hull. I'm going to go ahead and show that one with another part. So we can do it with just this geometry. We'll show that first, and Magic Wrap. Or we could do the whole thing. I'm just going to get rid of that, select everything, and Magic Wrap that. So it's a convex hull bounding box. Remove feature. Let's remove a feature from this geometry. So I want to pick all the faces that are on the part that are unique to that part, and then I can remove that feature. And just click Remove Feature. Let's do it on some more geometry. Let's say this hole, remove feature, and let's say this hole, just getting the geometry that's unique to that feature, and then remove feature. Collision analysis. Let's look at another cylinder assembly for that. Okay, I want to know what parts are intersecting with other parts. So I'm going to run collision analysis, and I'm looking for parts that might be a problem. And looks to me like the I'm going to look at the piston rod and the piston. So these actually look pretty good. They're these two parts are just touching each other, and I can see that if I scroll over to the right. They just touch each other from the inside. They just touch each other on the outside. Here's a good one. Short shaft and piston rod. You can see with a short shaft there is cutting into the piston rod, and if we scroll over to the right, you'll see bodies interpenetrate. So that's good to know. Those need to be moved a little bit. It's a kind of a sloppy assembly mate. Let's look at another one. The long shaft and the cylinder base. You can see that these two are just fine. The shaft is growing through the part and it's only touching each other from the outside. So that's collision analysis. You can save that as an Excel spreadsheet. Draft analysis. Let's look at plastic part 2 for that. So for draft analysis, pick the pull direction and then pick draft analysis. And let's say that we want our draft to be 4 degrees or better. Anything that fits that is going to turn green. If it needs more draft, it'll be painted. If it needs more draft, it'll be painted orange. And then if it's an overhang, it'll be painted red. So we'll click OK. You can see some of the sidewalls don't have 4 degrees of draft. So let's try it again. Let's pick this pull direction, draft analysis, and say that our draft angle needs to be at least 3 degrees. And you can see everything passes. So that's draft analysis. The other thing related to draft analysis is pick your pull direction and pick the surface that's drafted. And if it's difficult to dimension, you can always just run show draft angle. And we can see that's 3 degrees. Cutting plane. Okay. I'll use this one to show that. So I want to cut away this part so I can show some internal features and do some design studies on just the inside of this assembly. So to do that, we'll use cutting planes, and we'll start with our y-axis. And I'm going to pull this out just a little bit so we can see that nut area on the inside. And I'll go ahead and look at the x-axis also and pull that to where I need it. And then the z-axis, we'll go ahead and just accept that and then click OK. Now this geometry is going to be a Boolean cut. And so now I could go ahead and save this as a step or whatever, and it's going to have those cuts in it. So that's cutting planes. The next few features are MagicCheck features, so I'll go ahead and close these files and we'll get into MagicCheck. So MagicCheck works by comparing part to part, and I'll click on Open Parts. We'll pick both parts out. And we'll just pick these 2 iterations of a mobile phone cover. Always make sure the original is at the top. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and check our settings and decide if we're going to do validation analysis or revision analysis. Let's choose revision and click Analyze Parts. So all this is pretty much the way it has been. What I'm going to show are some new things, annotations and sections. Okay, so for annotations, we'll go to the View browser. All those views were captured. And if I click on View Region, Change Region 1, it's got an annotation arrow, so it's easier to see where the changes are because they're all annotated. Then, if you want to make a section through the part, let's do that. Go to Operations, Section Planes, and I'll click on X-axis, and we'll just drag this. Let's say we want to cut all the way through where there's that chamfer going through the hole, and click OK. And we'll go to View Browser again and pin it open, and then we'll make a new view. Whoops. We'll go ahead and go to Operations, Section Planes, X-axis. We'll go ahead and slide this over so it's cutting through the hole. OK, and make a new view. And notice that the new view is called a section. And now this section will remember that it was sliced. And we can use this in our report. This section will show up in our MagicCheck report. And finally, batch compare. So with Magic Check, I can go to batch compare. And the way this works, you select the folder containing the authority parts, and we'll go ahead and get that. They will be SOLIDWORKS parts in that folder, and then pick the folder containing the derived parts, and that'll be the step parts. And they do have to match up in terms of names, and then we'll say, do you want validation or revision check? I'm going to say validation. Select an output folder. We'll pick this one, which is currently empty. Let's take a look at that. And select folder and go. And it's going to use whatever tolerance we already have set, which is 1/1000th of an inch. And here's where we're going to have our reports being saved and our log file. So it's going to run through all the process. And so we've got our first part-to-part comparison report. And while we're waiting for that to finish, the last thing I want to mention in terms of new features in SP1 is MagicSTK now has GLTF support. So you can take a CAD or Collada file into STK with MagicSTK, but now you can also use GLTF as a format. Okay, so now we have our results. We've got 6 parts that we have reports on 6 parts. Let's open up the comparison report. And this is just going to show the 2 parts that were compared and whether it was a pass or a fail, and then what the name of the report was. And that pretty much does it for TransMagic R14 SP1 new features. Thank you for watching.